What's up, everyone? Like you heard in the intro, we have another special guest on the line because we are 3 games into the NBA Finals. Some are calling the most boring NBA Finals of all time. Clearly, those fans have never watched basketball before because these 3 games have been electric. And this is why we play the games. We're excited to see teams from smaller markets build up because why even play the games if these teams don't have a shot at it? And all we're rooting for is LA versus New York every year. Today, we have Mike Zakarian on the line, who is the definitive NBA comedian. You know me, I like to make jokes. I'm excited to hear Mike's jokes as well. He's also the host of the NBA Bit and also has the Elite Fantasy Sports with Mike Zakarian on YouTube. He's doing a ton of great work here. And I was just excited that he responded and was able to make this last minute here after game 3. So, Mike, say what's up to the Show About
Hey,
Sports crew.
thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And what I've learned, you can just put whatever you want in your bio, and then people will say it. So I did. I wrote down definitive NBA comedian. There's no fact checking that happens. It's been great.
That's awesome. That's awesome across the board. And I've actually kind of noticed that about social media ever since starting it about 2 years ago. Some people just kind of develop their own personas online, if you will. We have on Threads, shout out to Yo Rush. I know he's listening to this. He's kind of the mayor, as we call him, of NBA Threads, where he just kind of kicked it off for all of us. And now we have the NBA comedian here on the line. And we got to get you more on Threads. I saw you start posting on Threads a little bit, and I just feel like I'm trying to empower you to post a little bit more because you like the NBA community on that
Dude, I
platform.
like that. I am on Threads enough to know who Yo Rush is. So you said that,
There
and
we
I
go.
was impressed that I knew who that was right away. Yeah, I
There we
did. I
go.
went through like a phase of it. I want to say it was like last year maybe where I was pretty active on there. And then yeah, I know. I go through phases. I go through phases. But you're right.
That's
I do
fair.
need to get back out there.
That's fair. If you're looking for a new place, a little bit less going on than the other one over on X or, Instagram or YouTube, it's a fun
Yeah.
place to be, especially during the game. So yeah, let's jump into things here. Game 3 last night. Oh, that was awesome. That was
Yeah, man.
basketball at its highest level, right?
That was so much fun. I think this whole series. I mean, I know game two is kind of a blowout, but with the way the Pacers play, like even when it's an 18-point lead or whatever, you're like, man, I don't know. We have to watch a little bit longer. But last night was awesome. It's always cool to see when you go from one arena to the other and how like the role players step up. And clearly, we saw that. We saw like the most TJ McConnell game of all time from him last night. And that was a lot of fun. And a lot of people egg on their face, right? The most popular pick was Thunder in 5, myself included. And we are at least going to 6 games now.
Yeah, no, 100% across the board. And I was taking notes before this, and one of the notes is I wrote down, was that the best 15 minutes of basketball we've ever seen from TJ McConnell? I mean,
Y-
I looked at the box score and I was like, he only played for 15 minutes, caused 5 crucial turnovers, offensive rebounds across the board, making great passes, keeping his team involved. And like we know, he's a great defender. I know I'm being kind of hyperbolic in that kind of best 15 minutes of basketball ever, but holy cow, you can't ask for much more when you think about a role player that's only putting in about 15 minutes at the end of the day each game.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about like how that game started too, I know Halliburton's line ended up being really nice because he had a very strong second half, but like that first half was pretty gross from the Pacers side of stuff, and they really couldn't get anything going. And so to see that like big just jolt of energy from McConnell, but yeah, you're right. There's probably a new like there's a take that you had right there. If you nuance it a little bit, where it's like the best 15 minutes of basketball for someone that only played 15 minutes,
Yeah,
like, right? Like that
exactly.
it was so impactful. I mean, that inbound interception, I don't even want to call it a steal. It literally like he was a defensive back picked it off, and then it's just so he just looks so unassuming too, and that's I think part of the reason why it always sticks out so much. But he was him and Benedict Mathurin, who like really struggled early on in this postseason, both like on the court, and it felt like he couldn't really find the flow of the Pacers offense. And I mean, between the two of them, they carried them for like long stretches last night. That's part of the reason they won that game.
Oh, 100%. And I was going to jump into Matherin next, another kind of bit on him. He didn't play at all in the first quarter. He had the quietest 27-point outing I think I've ever seen, where, like you just said, the Pacers came out a little bit flat. I feel like it was more jitters, playing at home.
Yeah.
They felt this kind of, we need to rebound. This almost felt like a must win game for them. Because if I had to be honest, like we were all kind of predicting, if it was going to be OKC in 5, they were going to rattle off a few wins to get to that. It wasn't going to kind of be a back and forth kind of
Right.
series in that nature. And they stole game 1, so it kind of felt like the momentum the Pacers needed, like a strong game in Mathurin. comes in and does Matherin type things, which can sometimes annoy the fans. He's talking a little bit of smack, a little bit too much. He's a little
Yeah.
bit lax at times with the ball, and we're like, hey, like you're good. We know you're good. Like let's hold that together. And he really showed that in this game and showed a lot of supreme confidence. When you think about Matherin, though, his spot with Nemhard in the lineup is always interesting because I feel like they're kind of similar players. I think Nemhard gives you a little bit more on defense and a little bit
Yeah.
more effort overall. But when I'm thinking about the offensive bag, Matherin definitely has a little bit more. What do you think? Do you think this then leads to an overarching kind of change in their lineup where Matherin might get a little bit more touches? Or is this more of a, hey, that was great. Let's keep things as they're going because everybody knows their role on the team right now. And I would hate to throw that momentum off.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think the one of the really impressive things about both of these teams, but the Pacers specifically, is it does seem like there's a pretty strong understanding of what everybody's role and responsibility is on the team. And I do think like maybe I think what Carlisle does a really good job is he kind of like presses the Matherin button, right? And you watch it happen for a few minutes, and you kind of know you're like, all right, are we having a Matherin game, or is Matherin gonna take a back seat? And Rick does a really good job. I'm calling him Rick like we're boys. Coach Carlisle does a really good job of just like knowing what levers to press. I don't think that you can like change Nembhard's minutes at all, just because I feel like he's like the unsung hero of this series because Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is still going to put up his numbers, but it is not an easy like night for him. Nembhard is doing a great job just up and on him from start to finish. I mean, like last night, what was so, and I know we'll talk about the Thunder here in a second, but what was so interesting about that first quarter is like the Thunder seemed in control with Shea not doing anything, like he wasn't doing anything offensively. And I thought, like when that quarter ended, I was like, "Oh man, the Thunder have this." Like you're telling me you guys got a comfy like 8-9 point lead without Shea. Like Chet was getting to the line a bunch early. So I was really impressed with how the Pacers like fought back in that game. But I do think like Nembhard's defense is just so freaking important. They can't really mess with those minutes.
100%. And what's interesting about how these games have gone, I felt the same way in every single game. OKC comes out and they are who they are. Chet gives you 15 points in the first, quarter and a half, if you will. And you love to see that from him. But then he kind of went quiet. It then turned into a quiet 20. He only scored about 5 points in the second half. Yes, his space on the floor is a little bit more defensive focused at times. He's a little bit more of a rim protector, more of a rebounder at times. But it was interesting to see, Dort got his shots up, Jay Will got his shots up. SGA finished with 24 across the board, not his best performance when we think about how important his 35 a game really is to
Right.
them overall. But they tend to disappear a little bit for times, and that's where the Pacers step on the pace, if you know what I mean, where they're still trying to find their footing. I feel like Nemhard, I feel like, you think all the way even to a Matherin guy, you think of a McConnell and even Halliburton, they need a couple missed shots to then see a
Mm-hmm.
ball go in. And so it's kind of interesting to see how the ebbs and flows of these games are because OKC always comes out with the momentum. Are you worried that they can't hold that momentum against a team like the Pacers, or is that just downplaying how impactful the Pacers can go on these runs?
No, yeah, I would say like I thought Game 3 was the first time the Pacers actually looked comfortable offensively. Like because even though they are up 2-1, you think about that first game. I mean, OKC dominated the entirety of the game until the last like 8 minutes or so. So I still think like OKC has answers for this. But I mean, you think like looking ahead to game 4, the pressure has been applied, right? And we've seen OKC respond in a couple of times, like in the Denver series, I believe they were down 2-1, right? And then they ripped off a couple of wins before losing and then ultimately winning in game 7. But I like, man, I just at the first round of the playoffs, I feel like I called everything like almost to a T. And since then, I've just gotten everything wrong. So, like, even trying to project what's going to happen in game 4, I no longer have a clue. I really don't. I thought for sure OKC gets game 2. Now, all of a sudden, it's must win for Indy. They're going to come out and just spank them. And that's what it looked like it was going to be in the first quarter. So, anyways, I do think OKC will have an answer. I would be surprised if Indy like goes back to OKC up 3-1. But I mean, I don't know. We'll know early because if OKC doesn't come out early in that first quarter of game 4, I mean, the pressure because Gainbridge is just going to be out of control, like that home court. And then another like fun thing about this finals is like both of these home courts are hilarious. Like they are insane. it's just the most amount of white people. It's just like between those two fan bases, but it's just such a fun, like those environments are awesome. I've been really enjoying it.
I really love places where they wear the shirts too that they put in the
Yeah,
crowd. I love seeing the yellow out, the blue out games that they've been having across the board. It's really cool to see that. And it's interesting. With OKC, I really appreciate how they're trying to show us how mature they are with how their energy seems to be on the court. SGA will not fluctuate a lot.
right.
He might like raise his eyebrows a little bit at a call from time to time, but he never gets fired up or too low on things. And I think that kind of trickles down into the rest of the team. We see
Hmm.
Holmgren get a putback dunk. We see Caruso make a steal. They might, show a little bit of emotion, but are they playing too much into this? Oh, we're cool, calm, and collected phase. Because what I love about the Pacers is they're all showing emotion. Everyone from Halliburton, who can sometimes show too much emotion with the
Right.
choke sign before you even made the game winner, which I love.
It's
I
great.
wouldn't never do that. I would always do that if I was
Yeah.
him. But then it trickles down to the Obi Toppins, to the Matherins, to the TJ McConnells, even to Thomas Bryant when he gets his 10 minutes in and he just chugging up and down the court for a few. Are you worried that OKC fell flat in this game because they just looked tired? They looked disengaged. They didn't look invested in the end. And that's why they missed every shot they took for the last 5 minutes of that game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I tend to fall on that type of thing to be like results based because I do think if OKC had won the game, we would have said like, oh, they never get too up, never get too down, and that can sometimes be a flaw to just get like too ramped up for a game and then you kind of like you overdo it with intensity and then you kind of play yourself out of the game, right? And so, and then, but then when you lose, then you'd have this conversation, right? Because you could have said the same thing. If the Pacers lost that game after the choke sign in overtime, right? We would have been like, this is what's wrong with the league. We would have been doing a bunch of that stuff. I like, I think I go the other way where I just think like, infrastructurally of a team, leadership is important and it doesn't have to look the same. And the Pacers are kind of like this, it's almost like group leadership in a sense where they do like follow Hallie. Hallie is the engine. He might not be the best player on the team night to night, but he is what makes the offense go. And like SGA is somebody like you brilliantly pointed out, right? That he kind of stays even keeled, so everybody stays even keeled. You see Anthony Edwards, the way that he leads. I mean, that dude had made Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert likable, which no one has been able to do for the last like 10 years. And so I think, and the Ant Man does it in a very different way. So I do think it's like there's no like one right way to do it. I just think like because we did this after game two when the Pacers lost and everybody's like, dude, what's wrong? Halliburton needs to be more aggressive. And it's like if you've never watched basketball before, like hey, that's not Halliburton's game, man. That's not what he does. And I think sometimes it's okay just to be like, wow, Pacers played really well and they won last night. You know what I mean? Like I don't necessarily know if we have to be like, this is how they screwed up. I just think like in game two, OKC reminded everybody they were the best team in the league for the entirety of the season. And then in game three, the Pacers were like, we're here for a reason, you know?
And that's totally fair. But Mike, I do have to push back. We wouldn't have shows if there wasn't an overreaction to be
No,
had
no,
about these games.
yeah. I think we should still overreact, but I also want people to know it's okay.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think at the end of the day, it just was who executed in the last 5 minutes of that game
Mhm.
because the whole time everybody was in that game. Even when the Pacers, like you said at the beginning, get down by 8, I'm never worried. I'm like, yeah, they're going to come
Yeah.
back. They've shown us all season long that they're willing to play that type of style and they're going to get up shots quicker than 7 seconds in some of the shot clocks and they're going to be able to they just have more possessions. They're just going to get to the teams like that. So it's interesting. But here's something I want to dive into a little bit: the secondary players. We kind of tapped into Matherin and McConnell. I even mentioned, the Obi Toppins, the Shepherds, the Bryants, etc. on the Pacers. I feel like I know exactly what I'm going to get out of every single one of those players. I'm never surprised. Even Matherin's 27 last night. I knew he had that in him.
Mhm.
McConnell, his defensive prowess and his offensive, mindset of the game. I knew he has that. And even Thomas Bryant, I'm never worried when he's on the court because he's not going to play his team out of the game because he's not going to be like,
Sure.
well, time to get 10 shots up now that I'm finally in the game. He
Right.
knows his role. OKC, I see a couple cracks in the system. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit throughout the season with OKC because they have so much talent that when these guys get minutes, and I'm talking about the Wiggins, I'm talking about the Isaiah Joes, I'm talking about the other Williams, I'm talking about the two other Williams, I should say, Case and obviously Jay Williams, it kind of feels like they're trying to prove it a little bit too much when they get on the court. We see Wiggins have a great game in game two, but the whole OKC team was having a great game. He then comes into this game, 10 minutes, 0 for 2, no points. And you're like, whoa, what a steep drop off. I thought Wiggins was going to be consistently okay. But then you look at the box scores and they're all minuses when you talk about the plus minus. They just didn't have the impact you would want from the secondary players. And so back to our overreaction. Am I overreacting about this, or are you kind of seeing these similarities on the court?
No, you know what I would say? I this is not a new take. I know other people have said this for like decades, but I do think in these big types of games, the role players when they're at home are able to get to the another level, and on the road, not so much. And I mean, like I think TJ McConnell is a great example of this because in I really came away from the first two games being like, oh, this isn't a TJ McConnell series because what TJ does so well is like get into the passing lanes. He's just super aggressive, but he also is somebody like once he gets the outlet pass or if he corrals a rebound, he's just going, right? He's just taking off and diving into the paint. But he's doing that again. Well, like in OKC, it's like, well, here's Lou Dort, here's Caruso, here's Cason Wallace in transition. Like, good luck, man. But then you see him come home. And in Indiana, all of a sudden, he like turns into a new guy. Same thing with Matherin. But the Wiggins, like where what did Wiggins and Caruso, I think combined for like 38 points or 37 points in game two. And then
Yeah.
in game three, you know, like you just pointed out Wiggins' stats. I mean, it was clear the second he checked in, you're like, oh, it's not going to be a Wiggins game. So I think it's just hard to expect that type of play from your role guys on the road. And that's when you need the guys though, like your Chet Holmgrens who got off to a hot start and then kind of fell off. Like those are the guys that need to step up in those road wins, I think.
100%. I'm with you on that take there. I think that's a really good way of kind of phrasing it. And I think they'll settle in a little bit more here in game two. I think they will across the board. And we can expect, SGA's 24, like I was kind of mentioning, is obviously small for him. He needs
Right.
to be an engine that at least gets 30. And if he put up 30, it'd be about a tie game right now if we're talking about how this game finished out. And so
Absolutely.
I'm not necessarily worried. This feels like a punch and counter punch type of series, kind of as we've a little bit been alluding to. Do you think OKC is going to come out in game four similar to as they did in game two, where they're like, all right, enough of this. Let's just like step on the gas like we do. Let's take Halliburton out of the game the way that we did and just go from there? Or is it not going to go that way this time? Because this was actually more of a Pacers dominant win, not a lucky win like game one was for the Pacers.
Yeah, I think we probably see something close to what game four was of the Timberwolves and the Thunder in the conference championships or in the conference finals, excuse me, where like it was a pretty competitive game the whole way through. And then ultimately OKC got the W. I mean, this is, it could be done. Like we've seen, LeBron come back down from 3-1 before. They are not winning the NBA finals if they lose game 4. And I think they know that. And I think they are the 68 whatever win team they were in the regular season. I don't think this is like a fluky run or anything like that. And I expect them to like respond in game 4. That doesn't I do think Indiana though, they're at home, man, and they're blood in the water. Like if it is a close game down the stretch, I would feel very nervous as a Thunder fan, just because we've seen the Pacers pull these games out, no matter whether it's Giannis, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson in Madison Square Garden, and they've already done it to OKC on their home court. I would not want to be in like a 2-possession game with 4 minutes left.
No, because what differentiates these teams, I think, and this is obviously kind of a generalized statement, is OKC needs SGA to have the ball in his hands to end those games. He needs to
Mhm.
make those shots. He needs to have the ball. We might be okay with the kick out to Jay Will or a Lou Dort on the edge or like a putback or kind of a set motion play to get Hardenstein or Chet at the rim. But with the Pacers, I am okay top to bottom 1 through 9. Anybody, if Toppin's feeling himself like he went 5 for 7 in game 3 or game 2, I'm okay with Toppin taking a game winning shot. That's what the Pacers have for me because they don't have that dominant score where I'm like, Halliburton needs to be taking these shots at the end. They won game one not because of Halliburton. They won it because of
Right.
Neesmith going on maybe the best 2 minute streak of all time. Speaking of these Pacers setting records for these best minutes ever in a playoff
Right.
basketball. And that's what I kind of feel like is the difference where you literally can run anything at the end of these games. And I will trust that if Neesmith's hot, if Matherin's hot, if Halliburton's hot, or if even Turner's hot, Let's give them the ball and let them go to work, and I will have no problems. With OKC, I get worried when the ball somehow ends up with Jay Will at the end of the game, even though I really like Jay Will, and what he
Yeah.
is kind of Robin to Batman there. I get a little bit more worried. Do you feel that way, or am I being a little bit too exaggerative with that?
No, no, no. I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, I know Jalen Williams hit like a couple of really big shots in that Denver series in the closeout game, and I know he had an incredible Timberwolves series. And I love Jalen Williams. I'm a big fan of his, so I do believe in him. I think like the difference. I agree with you. I think like Indiana is very comfortable no matter who takes the big shot. I mean, it's been Halliburton. Even in game one though, there was that possession or two possessions before Halliburton got that game winner where Nembhard basically broke down SGA and then hit a step back three. That was like one of the biggest shots of the game. So you're right. It's all like any given guy can do it on any night. What I do like about OKC though is like yes, it's going to be in Shea's hands, and even though everybody knows that, Shea's still going to get a shot up. That is a very good shot. Like he is so unguardable. There was a just this like great move last night where sort of in transition, and he just like everybody knew he was going to the rim, right? Everybody knew exactly what was happening, and they still couldn't stop it. He's just like playing at his own pace. He's like listening to a podcast at like 1.35 speed, which is not, I don't think, allowed. Maybe it is on Spotify, I don't know, but like he's just doing his own speed, and you just can't stop it. So like yeah, I totally agree with you that I trust like the others of Indiana maybe more than OKC, but it's hard to argue with Shea having the ball in his hands at the end of the game.
Exactly. You see kind of a rebound, and then they look for Shea right away, and that's how they start their
Hmm.
offense. It might end up in somebody else's hand by the end of those big possessions at the end of the game, but that's the difference. Even last night, the Pacers are leading by like 6 or 7 at this point. They get a huge rebound, and Halliburton, it's almost like he's autopilot, flings it up the court to Pascal. And
Yeah,
I'm like, whoa, let's waste some clock here. Pascal backs down SGA real quick. They get a quick transition layup. Now they're up by 8-10 at that point. And I'm like, see, they never waver. They have they have balls. You know what? I'm like, wow, that
yeah.
was crazy. Like I SGA and OKC would have stepped back, slowed it down, whatever this that. Pacers were like, no, this is how we play. Halliburton caught the ball in an outlet, and it was almost automatic to just toss it up to Pascal in that
Yeah, I honestly
respect.
think that's almost a credit to OKC's defense where like Indiana's like, I don't want them to set their defense up. Like, let's go. Let's try to find a mismatch because like their half court offense is really tough against that defense. And so I think that's what separated game three between one and two, in my opinion, where it's just like Indiana seemed like they had a much better feel for the flow of the game, and they were kind of dictating terms in how quickly they were playing. And we didn't really see that specifically. No, I mean, a little bit in game one, but not at all in game two. And yeah, I think that play you're talking about, I remember specifically that too, being like, no, slow down. All right, good, 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 good.
Literally, I watched the last 5 minutes of the game this morning to just kind of make sure my notes and my thoughts were aligned with what I saw last night. And it just was like, okay, so you couldn't make a shot in the last five, and the
Nope.
Pacers didn't step off the gas despite them building this lead at the end. And I was like, all right, that's pretty cool to see in a basketball game. So
Yeah.
let's go big picture. We have to kind of overreact to something that hasn't happened yet. OKC loses the NBA Finals. Let's start there. Is this one of the bigger failures we will have seen in NBA history based on how good their regular season was when we look back on it? I think it's interesting that we point to that with OKC right now because they're in this spot to potentially win, and that's the obvious thing to do. We can point the same finger at Cleveland these last two
Right.
seasons. Great regular season, even better this year, and they fall flat on their face to Indiana. And to be honest, I've been preaching this since the beginning. I didn't think Cleveland had it based on what I've been seeing. And so are we going to be a little bit too crazy by saying this is one of the bigger failures of all time if OKC can't wrap this up based on what they've been gifted with Memphis in the first round, easy money. You go
Right.
down the list. Denver is probably their biggest test, I would say. The Pacers
Yeah.
are definitely a test because they've shown us they're a test, but there's always that thought in the back of our mind. That's why a lot of people picked OKC in 5, some in 4, as bold as that was. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts are if
I
OKC doesn't pull this out?
Yeah, I guess I'd fall somewhere between failure and disappointment. I think that this would be a pretty tough loss for them just because They are the favorites. It's hard to win NBA titles. It's hard to get through the Western Conference, and for them to, it's not guaranteed. I mean, I'm originally from Massachusetts. I'm a Celtics fan. It's not guaranteed that you're gonna make the trip back again, even if it looks like it's lined up for you, right? And so it's really important to take advantage of these opportunities while they're there. That being said, like they had an incredible season. They got through the West. I mean, ultimately they would fall short. So I guess yes, you could say it is a failure. I don't think I'd be if I'm Sam Presti or I don't think I'm pressing a panic button being like we need to fix this immediately, especially because all of the discourse around this Thunder team before the playoffs started, nobody thought they would get to the finals. Like a lot of, well, not nobody, but a lot of people were like, oh, you need playoff experience. So then if they do lose, you can't use the same thing against them because like now they have their playoff experience, so maybe they should run it back. But yeah, I don't know. I think this would be. I think they probably would consider it a failure. I think they would, but I wouldn't like panic about it though.
No, I wouldn't panic either. The only thing I would panic about is the bill that will be due soon here with this
Yeah.
team. So if you want to win a title and then potentially run it back like the Celtics tried to do this year with a big tax bill around the
Hmm.
corner, you got to win one so that you can win the other.
Right.
And if you don't win this one, it's going to be harder to justify keeping the whole band together and not cutting back on a little bit of money to not go into that second apron type of conversation. So it'll be interesting there. But when we go to the flip side, the Pacers weren't even like a top 8 team in terms of odds to win the NBA title this year, let alone get to this far again, despite what they did last year, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, where everyone kind of wrote them off all year long. They then go through the Bucks. Yes, injuries to Dame across the board, but still took down Giannis, which is still just like you take down Denver. You know, it's a
Hmm.
top 3 MVP type talent type of team, even though they're a little bit older. Then you keep rolling through across the board. You take down Cleveland. They've had their battle scars against a number one team, so they're not afraid of OKC. And then they take down the beloved Knicks like they always become at this point of the season, where everyone's like, well, yeah, let's root for the Knicks. Their drought's been so long. And so, what do we even, if the Pacers win this NBA Finals, it kind of feels like when the Bucks finally won that title with Giannis,
Sure.
but they don't. Halliburton's not Giannis. Like their best player isn't like an MVP and then a title, and it won't be remembered as such because I feel like Halliburton might fall into the forgotten stars of the league once we're 30 years down the road. But tell me what your perspective would be if the Pacers win, how the league might shift and adapt, and just kind of your generalized thoughts there.
I think this is probably the beginning of like the new NBA, where this collective bargaining agreement and how teams are able to spend money. That it's going to be a lot of teams built like this, where it's no. I mean, Halliburton and Siakam are obviously making some money, and Miles Turner's about to get paid too. But it's not. I don't think you're going to be having like these 2, 3 max guys on a team anymore, and it's going to be kind of the sum of all parts, right? And it's going to be like a full roster of guys contributing to a team, not just like your big three. I think that is what we could see. And I might push back a little bit on Halliburton not being remembered like that, only because, man, I like his. It's so funny. The thing that we want more than anything else, right, is as like sports fans are guys that come through in those big moments, right? Like that's like you forget everything else. If you when push comes to shove and everything's on the line, we want the guy that's going to hit the shot. And Halliburton has done that better than truly everyone in his sample size. Like I saw that Tom Haberstroh stat that he put out there. It was before he hit his most recent one. So I believe he's now 11 of 13 in like game winning or game tying shots or something like that. It's just incredible. And so I don't know. I think that's what you root for, and also because his shot looks horrendous. Like he's the only person. He looks like the only person that didn't grow up in the AAU program. Like everybody shoots the same now except for
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this could be just the beginning of like this new style of NBA. I mean, OKC is kind of like that too, right? Where you've got your main number one, and J Dub and Chet will definitely get paid, but it's more of a team effort versus just like, hey, we got LeBron and Luca, and then we'll figure it out. You know?
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And yeah, I don't want to put any disrespect on Halliburton because I completely think he's going to be, I'm going to remember this,
Yeah,
as but the casual fans, and it kind of goes into that conversation of this is the most boring and the ratings are down NBA finals ever. And it's because the casual fan hasn't caught up to the Halliburtons and the SGAs of the world because the NBA still is pushing us to Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. As they should, because they're legends of the game, and I'm gonna miss them when they're gone, as in not playing anymore. But the NBA, this is what's so good about this finals is we're seeing
yeah,
these new names that people are going to have to start talking about in their vocabulary as normal because these teams are going to be around and they're going to
yeah.
be in these dances.
And can I let me ask a question, and it could be for you or for the listeners. Oh, why are we talking about the ratings? I like
Yeah.
there's no other world unless I'm not in the right like threads or the right like group chats or whatever. No one's ever being like, dude, did you see how many people tuned into the pit this year? Like nobody's talking about how many people tuned into the Grammys. Like this affects us none. The NBA already got their media rights deal. It's like I who cares? I don't care how many people tune into ESPN to watch the game. It does not affect it at all. That's like
No.
I don't like force people like, oh, how many people watch Welcome to Wrexham this week? I do not give a shit. Why are we talking about it? It's the most confusing thing. It's just a bunch of dorks, guys. Relax.
No, no, it's a great question. You should go on threads because I tried to be funny from time to time with some gifs and stuff like that. And I was, the whole trend, the holy freaking airball trend that's
Yeah.
going around right now. I just was like, after that game last night, I just posted like the Halliburton meme and I'm like, this will be me to everyone that says these NBA finals are boring and ratings are down. Holy
Yeah.
freaking airball to that take. Because what are we doing? I'm
Yeah.
completely with you. I'm tired of writing all of these genuinely thought out threads all day about like the Thunder and the Pacers are doing this, and there's just those bots in the comments
I
that are like,
know.
this sucks. It should have been New York versus Boston. I'm like, do you even know how NBA works? That could never happen in the finals. They're in the same conference. That doesn't
Yeah.
even work.
And you can I'm okay if you're like, we don't really have like a true superstar that is like a broad superstar. I'm fine to have that conversation. If your team didn't make it, yeah, of course you're bummed. Like I was bummed the Celtics aren't in there. But like I again, the fact that you're pointing at a number that you, the person commenting, do not even know how it's tabulated. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You don't even know how they figure out the freaking ratings. Like I'll never understand. I will never. I'm trying to think of like a better comp for this to be like no one's checking people's YouTube and being like, oh, did you only 1.5k, only
Yeah.
1.5k on that view? Like maybe his content's going like nobody's doing that. Why are we doing
No.
this for ESPN? Who cares?
No, seriously. And like you said, the money's already in place. These
Yeah,
ratings are this, that, or the other at this point. And it's just like, yeah, and it makes sense. Some cities are smaller and some are bigger than others. So the just general viewership will also vary in those kinds of ways. But like you just said, there's so many points of how they tabulate it. I don't even believe it when it's so good, too. When I
right.
see stuff about like ratings, like this was the best watched baseball game of all time on this Tuesday, I was like, how did they even get to that? Like I don't even
It's
follow baseball, but I'm not going to comment on it. I'm not going to have
right.
a thought process on
It's also such a nuanced conversation. Nobody has cable. Like nobody's
that.
got cable anymore. Everybody's like nobody watches anything live. And the reason the NBA was able to get so much money for the rights is because that's live sports is the only thing that like you can advertise around now. It's the only thing people watch together. So those numbers are going to continue to come down just
I
because
agree.
that's where like the direction of entertainment is going. So like I again, just just watch the game, man.
And that's the thing. I feel like I was listening to like the Bill Simmons podcast, which is a great podcast for anybody that doesn't listen to that one. I don't know if you're a fan
Yeah.
personally, Mike, but I just think they were having an interesting conversation about it. It feels like the NBA has always been in a ratings are down
Yeah.
crisis. Like there's something wrong with the league. Like they just thrive on this it kind of boosts their ratings because of how much we talk about this type of stuff, which
Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to push that narrative because any business would want to push a positive narrative when
Right,
ratings
right.
are up. But I just feel like the NBA is kind of that vessel because we, for some reason, try to compare it to other sports, especially like the NFL, which is its own juggernaut. And we do
Yeah.
not have to discuss how they're different because it's so clear as to why they're in certain places. But basketball's doing just fine. That's why
Yeah.
they signed a new media rights deal. That's why the number keeps going up. That's why the salary caps keep going up. That's why we continue to watch the games. So,
And you know what? If it's not fine, there's nothing you can do. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
your tweet about the ratings is not moving the needle. It's
no.
not.
And it's just a bummer because those people get enough likes to keep doing it. That's
I
what it
know.
really is. I'm like,
I
who's liking this? Who's
I
liking
know.
this? I'm like
I
ignoring.
know.
Okay, I'm pass. Okay. Before we move on, just kind of want to touch on the unsung hero of this kind of series so far. I think of this season so far, Pascal Siakam. I sent you that note.
Yeah.
If we're talking about forgotten superstars, he's not a superstar necessarily, but man, he is everything you want in a basketball player. Let's just be straight up. He's a
Yeah.
6'9" big man that is too big for a small guy to guard, and he's too small for a big guy to guard. He is everything you want. Talk about what Cooper Flagg should try to aim to be. Study Pascal Siakam tape because you're built the same way with even more gifts. If you could be Pascal Siakam in your first year, talk about a great first overall pick. But what did we do with Pascal overall? Because, man, Toronto wouldn't have won that championship without him. If Indy wins this championship, they wouldn't have won it without him. He will show up every single night. You might not love how it looks. You might nitpick things, but I don't even know what you nitpick about his game, to be honest with you. What are your thoughts on Pascal and his career up to this point?
No, I mean, he's been awesome. I was just looking at his basketball reference and like the last couple of seasons, right? So since 2021, 2022, he's played 68 games, 71 games, 80 games, 80 games, and then 78 this season. Like he's always available. He's always playing. I think the most interesting thing about his like this fit with Indiana, he's by far having his best 3-point shooting run of his career. He shot like 39% this past season, and then 30. It's so funny. His first half of the season in Toronto shot 31%, and then the second half of the season in Indiana he shot 38%. So he's just like, I think he's so perfect. He's such a perfect fit with Halliburton. I like that it's like some nights it's Siakam night, some nights it's Halliburton night. I like he can mismatch hunt. If you're going to put a smaller guy on him, he's going to pound you down low. He's just so athletic. And I like just don't think I knew how fast he was too. And that's why he really does. Like when you were watching that Knicks series at the end, I mean, they're just like, all right, leak out, leak out, leak out. And they just kept getting him on these like free runaways because he was just sprinting past everybody. It really does just seem like the perfect fit. And with Miles Turner too as like a third guy in there, they do seem to have like a good core. But yeah, I love Spicy P. I'm glad he found a good home in Indiana.
And I love his time in Toronto as well. It gave Toronto kind of a name. Obviously, Kawhi, and you think about the Marcus Souls and the Fred
Mhm.
VanVleets, but it's like he's almost forgotten on that team. He was so impactful when he was up and coming in the league for that team. And like you just said, with Pascal, it's so interesting. He'll get 6 boards last night, but it'll be a quiet 6 boards. You're not like, oh, Pascal was on the rim because, like you just said, he's always leaking out. And if I was a coach in that locker room, I would assume these are how the conversations are going. We have Turner down low. He'll just be the big body. Neesmith and Nemhard crash the boards. Like you are
Mhm.
these types of players that will do it all. You think about the McConnells, you think about the Shepherds, you think about the Toppins, and let Pascal leak out because he then creates a size disadvantage. Because whoever's getting back first is usually Case and Wallace. It's
Right.
the SGAs. And so when you're back, you know what we're able to do? We're able to then have 6'9" Siakam just back someone down at the end of the game and get a free layup. So
Yeah.
I'm all for this strategy that they have here. And like you just said, I think Pascal's really found a groove. I think Rick Carlisle is the perfect coach for him across the board. But how are we going to rank him all time just off the dome? I like, where do we put a guy that's had not a ton of accolades to show for it, but he could have 2 titles next to his name? At least the second best, if not the best player, will have Eastern Conference Finals MVP, maybe even Finals MVP here. This is a pretty good resume for a guy I think we're not going to put high enough on some lists.
Yeah, I was trying to find it on Basketball Reference to see like the Hall of Fame odds for him. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like he again. What was he? He's made the All Star team a couple of
Yeah.
times. He's got a
Hmm.
couple of All NBA appearances. He finished top 10 in the MVP voting in 2019, 2020. Most improved. Like I do think if we see them win a title this season, and like again, the most of that team is intact next season. It sounds like the Pacers are going to pay for Miles Turner to return next year, and you look at how bad that Eastern Conference is, if the Pacers are able to make like a couple more deep runs here with Siakam being either 1A or 1B to this team, yeah, I think he could start moving up. I really do think he
Yeah.
could start moving up. This is a great postseason for him. Like it really
Oh.
was kind of a Siakam showcase in a lot of ways. And I know Halliburton gets most of the headlines, but I mean, Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I know he's always in that 15 to 25, I think, of like
Mhm.
top players in the league
Yeah.
season to season. So I don't know. I mean, I imagine he gets into the hall when all is said and done.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting about every player on the Pacers. When you think about your list, you're like, of superstars, where do you put Halliburton? Everyone's like, out of the top 10 of the superstars of the league. You think about
Right.
secondary players, where do you put Pascal? Out of the top 10. Where do you put role players of Neesmith and Nemhard? Out of the top 10. Big men that you forget about, Miles Turner, out of the top 10. Actually, maybe number one in those because he's always forgotten as he's been
Mm.
at Indy his entire career, across the board.
And
He's
always on the
always,
trade block.
oh, dude,
It's
permanent.
crazy.
Permanent trade block guy. Maybe it'll happen eventually. Who knows? But I don't think so. Okay.
No.
I saw on your story. Let's wrap it up. We've just finished the finals, everybody. Click off if you don't want to hear anything else. But we're going to talk about the NBA draft. You got
Yeah.
your credentials. Are you going to the NBA draft?
This is my first credentialed experience. So I'm very excited. It's my second time going to the NBA draft, and I'll be honest, the first time I went, I had a terrible time. I said I would not do it again unless it was credentialed. So now that it's credentialed, and it'll be a little bit more fun. It's just such a weird experience because everybody in the arena knows the pick before the pick is made. And
Mm.
yeah, just because like the tweets come out, like everybody already kind of knows.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
it's this really weird thing too that it is clearly a production that's designed for TV, not necessarily like the live in arena event. And they don't, I think the NBA could do a better job like making it a bit more interactive. But I am very excited. I full disclosure, because I am like such a hoop head when it comes to the NBA. I'm a very casual college fan. So I'm
Yeah.
not like super well versed in the draft world outside of like the first handful of picks. But I am excited just because I think we are going to see a pretty active draft in terms of teams trying to trade up or move back, and I'm really excited about that. There was like rumors today about the Sixers trying to jump up to the number 2 spot with the Spurs, and Daryl Morey just loves that attention, baby. He needs to be
Oh
in the
my gosh.
spotlight.
Well, that's interesting that you say that about the event as a whole. As I completely agree. I've never been to either the NFL or the NBA draft in terms of the sports that I like to watch, but I always find it interesting, even on social media. I'm always like those people that somehow know it before, or maybe their TV's like 2 seconds ahead of everyone. I'm always bummed when I see it on social media and
I
not on
know.
the live broadcast. I'm like, can you guys like hold your tweet for a sec, your thread or tweet for a second? Cause I just want to like, well, I'm going to thread it too. Don't worry. I'm going to get it after, but I just want like to
Yeah.
enjoy it live. So it would be a bummer if I was actually there and also
Yeah.
seeing that. I'd be like, okay, what is the point of being here?
Yeah, I think I was there 2 years ago for the right. It was the Wemby draft, and because I live in New York and it was in Brooklyn, so it's an easy event to make it to, and it is just kind of it's weird. The build up, like when you get there, is really fun. There's a lot of excitement for it to start, and then it starts, and you're kind of like, oh, all right, this is it, huh? And then it's like 3 hours long for 20 picks, and you're like, it does not need to be this long. But I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good time, and hoping for some cool access.
For sure. No, you're
Yeah,
definitely going to have some sweet access. Everybody, make sure to follow along, not just on here, but on Instagram specifically. I assume
yeah,
you're going to be posting a lot there. Maybe make a vlog or something like that for your other channels and whatnot.
definitely, definitely. We will
Definitely.
be we'll
Love
be
to
out
hear it.
there. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I'm really excited.
Mike, it's been great to have you on today. Do you have any parting thoughts here? NBA draft related, NBA finals, any big predictions you want to shout out, or anything else you're working on, like going to the NBA draft here?
No, my big prediction is that the Knicks coach themselves next year. I think they end up
Ooh,
not being able to find a coach, and it's just they take turns. One night it's Jalen Brunson, one night it's Mikal Bridges. I just think that is the funniest story out there right now. That like you could make up a coach, and they'd be like they just turned down. They're like
yeah,
I really thought it was a fake like bot account that went out last night where they said Billy Donovan turned down the Knicks job. And I was
yeah,
like, wait, what?
no.
It's just incredible, man.
Well, it's interesting. My kind of conspiracy theory about all of this one, because this is a great topic we definitely should touch on here, is I think they're doing all of this like we're reaching out to everyone. Obviously, the Timberwolves are going to turn you down, the Rockets are going to turn you down, etc. I was surprised the Billy Donovan story about the Bulls. I was like, if
Yeah,
I'm Billy, get out of Chicago,
I
man. That
know.
like New York is way better if you're talking about just wanting to win more games. I
Yeah.
think the ending resolution is they're going to say, we tried. We asked everyone. We asked all of the employed coaches of America who wants to come coach the Knicks, and nobody said yes. So now we just have to promote Jalen Brunson's dad to be
Yeah,
the head
Rick Run.
coach.
That's good.
That's
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 good.
what we have to be. I've been saying that since the beginning. You'll see it in my comments and
I
threads when I'm
like it.
asking the community. I think that's what happens, and I just feel a little the Villanova, the nepotism, the
It's good.
Brunsons kind of lead the Knicks or own the Knicks like the mafia right now. I don't know. That's what I'm
This
feeling. It
is
might
good.
not happen, but that's my thing.
Listen, not that you need any advice, but I know you just started a YouTube channel. You fire up some sort of video about that like as soon as you can, because that will get a billion clicks. And I like those are good. Those are the only conspiracy theories I will engage in.
Exactly. I'm not even. It's not even a conspiracy theory too, because he is an assistant coach. It wouldn't
That's
be
right.
crazy for them to
It wouldn't
promote
be.
an
I
assistant
love
coach.
it. I
So
love it.
now, well, again, Mike, Grant, this was awesome. One of my favorite episodes. You're going to see this on YouTube, everyone. And make sure you check it out. We'll link everything below, not just my YouTube, but also Mike's as well. You can find this on Apple, Spotify. You can also find us on Instagram, Threads, probably more X for you, Mike, but I'm getting him on Threads, everyone. He's
I'll
going to
do it.
start
I'll do it.
posting more. I just know it. So, again, he is the definitive NBA comedian. I can now say that after talking with him for about 45 minutes. He's also the host of the NBA Bit and also has Elite Fantasy Sports with, like I said, Mike Zakarian. Again, Mike, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you. Everybody else, have a great rest of your week. More games coming around the corner. Hopefully they come a little faster. I'm tired of these like maybe 3-4 days in between. I
I
need
know.
basketball all the time, but that's just me as a personal fan. As I always say, have a great week and cheers, everyone.